Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to joining me on Friday at 5 live. Today I am going to introduce you to a very amazing lady called Dianne Hughes, who has been heavily involved in the HR industry and in the last couple of years set up her own coaching company. She's very much driven by engaging with people and getting them to reach their highest potential in whatever they've chosen to do. And at times when she's worked with some very, very strong-minded companies, she has been very heavily involved in getting the company ethos through the HR department into experiencing new ways of thinking to ensure that the members of staff and the team have got the best opportunities for them, and also trying to encourage the HR departments to embrace the fact that they always will have a very high percentage of female customers, so that or customers, employees, so that actually has to be these days very much more approach from a we understand what's happening, but until we actually educate everybody really what's happening within the industries in terms of looking after the female workforce, especially at executive level, and then also very importantly educating and talking to the male members of their teams, because if the male members don't actually understand what's happening to the females in their team, then there's going to be conflict of interests. And ultimately what we want is for everybody to work harmoniously. And for any of you that's been through menopause or going through menopause, the days that you can't think properly, maybe haven't slept the night before, you're sweating if you're panicking, you sort of do a presentation, you've been talking about some high pressured figures, and then you turn around to face the board and suddenly your mind's blank, and then you go into a huge hot sweat and you can see the boys waving and rolling their eyes as if to say, oh my God, what's happening to this woman? She shouldn't be here. It's just unacceptable in my opinion these days. And from my point of view, a lot of this actually very much depends on the ability of the companies to take responsibility to educate their staff at all levels. So one of my focuses is to go into business and corporations and spend a day with the HR team and then with segmented elements of their staff and demystify menopause for women and demystify menopause for men, and ensure that they are fully aware of what's actually happening and how that can actually benefit to the companies to have everybody fully aware of what's actually happening to the men and to the women going through that mid-stage part of their life. So here is Dianne. Very welcome to you this afternoon.
Hello, Deborah, and everyone else.
Brilliant.
This is fun.
Yeah, I know, it's Friday at 5, yay. So thank you for, the last the sun has come out, and today here it's been cloudy most of the day, and now the sun's coming out. I'm thinking maybe it's a barbecue night. What do you think?
Well, it's definitely a drink night. I don't know about barbecue night.
Dianne, every night's a drink night in my world currently. Anyway, so to everybody who's joined, thank you very much. Dianne Hughes is the founder and director of Walcott Hughes Consulting. Prior to having this business, very briefly, Dianne, you've had many years' experience as a coach and an HR director, working with businesses to support both the staff and the members of the HR department. And ultimately, your goal has been to get everybody to recognise their optimum performance levels, whether it's in work or personal things as well. Am I correct?
Yes, you are. Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to jump straight into sort of asking you some questions, because this is about us getting to understand what you do and what benefit you can bring to us. So I know that you started your business, and I've known you for a bit beforehand, but truthfully, I didn't really understand properly what you did in your corporate level. So why don't you just fill me in and share all that with us?
Okay, so I mean, I began my life years ago in recruitment when I was married and the children were young, and before that, in fact, and then started to move into human resources, which some people are very, negative about. But for me, I think I brought something which was very human to the whole arena. Stopped for a time when I had the children. I've got two sons who are now men now. And then went back to work, and I did work for myself for a time, still in HR.
Yeah.
And over a period of time, I think it's about 20 years ago now, I got divorced, which is a shame because great family, but these things happen. And I really then entered the corporate world, and I was privileged to work for some fabulous companies, really large companies, private. Then I made an interesting change to the public sector, worked for what was then called the Big Lottery Fund for 10 years. And I suppose that was sort of my pinnacle. That was the HR director role that I wanted. But in all of them, what combines those is people. So it's been about helping people, and you mentioned your own team. So I had a team of 22 people, but very much engaged with the workforce, whether it was with a big construction company with thousands of people. I used to love going on site with them. Hard hat on boots. Terminal 5 when it was being built, and great things like that. Yeah. And then with the Big Lottery, very much about connecting to charities that we were funding.
Yeah.
I probably wasn't quite as close because what I did was we were supporting the funding officers and the people making the decisions. And you don't realise how complex it is making decisions about where your lottery money goes. Because unfortunately, some people actually fraud. So you're constantly helping people, being able to have the confidence to exercise their judgment because they're making decisions that change the lives of people in the charities, and the communities. And then I'd been coaching for quite a bit, and I instigated a coaching group that we qualified a number of our own internal people to be able to coach, and also to have a coaching style. So when managers, they might not be coaches, but they're asking more coaching style questions and having coaching conversations rather than you must do this and why, and they would look to say what's going on, why is this person suddenly off sick, or their performance has dropped, because quite often there's something going on physically or mentally and their well-being behind that. So I just decided while I was doing that, I thought, my future at some point, I don't want it to be corporate after a while. I'd like to do the coaching as well as the HR and qualify myself, because that's such an interesting part of my, to my world.
So I know we haven't really talked a lot about this, because I've never really thought until you've just said what you've said, how important coaching is. What is your concept of the word coaching?
I think it's about facilitating the right questions, asking the right questions that help someone else determine what it is they have to do. Most people, I would say everybody actually, inside them is the ability to understand what they have to do. But they need to be asked sometimes challenging questions. It's not softly always, so that's how I work. It may be challenging questions. It's giving them a space to explore what the issue is and the problem is. And whether that is about their own confidence, whether it's about promotion, whether it's about dealing with a difficult boss or a colleague. So in the workplace, very much is often about, how do I get on in this organisation? And I don't necessarily mean promotion. I think sometimes it's about finding your niche and how you can enjoy it. And it all boils down quite often to an inner confidence and how that is displayed.
So you're like that little fairy godmother that we all know that we have inside, really, that gives us the honest answer. And you're the little one that goes along, well, think about it. Just think about it. Just think about it. And that's the sort of thing that we all need really in our lives, to sort of say, well, actually, I'm not going to say outrightly you're being really stupid because you can't see what's in front of you, but I'll quietly guide you to the point where whoever you're consulting says, I've been thick, I haven't recognized this, and go,
It's you just, Debs, you're just using that. I've watched people sometimes talking away there, and then I've asked a question and they may have a bit of space, and then suddenly there's that light bulb moment. So I could do this. And even lovely sometimes is people go away and they still feel perhaps some sort of weight. And then I love it the next time they go in, guess what's happened? Since you said this, since we did this, I've been able to address all these other things. And I call it almost a little domino effect. You know, when you set a domino, you go click, click, click. And it's like a series of things in their brain starts to go click into place.
Yeah.
Which is brilliant.
Yeah. So you really are that magic fairy. So what you're doing is really creating catalysts for people to see and recognize their own potential. And then, am I right in thinking, you guide them in action points to take them to the next level? Yeah,
very much so. Again, I always like them to create them. It's their agenda. And sometimes it's really helpful for them to go away saying with a commitment. But again, my role isn't to force them, but is to do that sort of challenging and to say, what is it you might do differently? What could you do?
Yeah.
And it's great if they come back and you know, I never press them, but I'm waiting for them to come back and say, I achieved this. I had some coaching because I think it's really important. I trained years ago. I trained years ago too in counselling, and you can't become a counsellor till you've had it. You think, well, I don't have a problem with myself. Oh, yes, I do. But I still have some mutual coaching. I'll always take an option, and one lady and I particularly do. And for me, it was great this week. Just, you know, thinking about lockdown and what it's done for us all. Where does my business go in the future and that sort of thing? And again, I went away thinking, it's more of a self-commitment to go and do something that you sort of have been thinking about, but you don't get round to. And I'm serious about this, so I'm going to do it.
Yes. Yeah. So have you found that, just now we touched on the current situation, have you found that the nature of your coaching business has changed because of it? I mean, I would actually think that you will be very in demand moving forward, because there's going to be such enormous disruption in so many businesses that you are really going to be a very vital, pivotal role for many people.
I think the main change has been the focus is probably less on personal development or career, and it's been quite often about resilience, being resilient. So that ability to bounce back.
Right.
So I don't think anyone, or it's going to be very strange if you are not at times affected by this thing.
Yes.
But a sense of resilience. So for me, one thing I'm by and large good at, and I think that's because I self-coach, is recognizing that something's happening and that I'm not as resilient.
Yeah. Okay.
And so one of the things about coaching is helping people understand and also accept it, but understand their own triggers. What is it that is making them less resilient and bringing them down? And then what can they do? And it won't be the same for everybody.
No.
There might be some common things, but by and large, people will have their own ways of recognition and then going, okay, what I need to do is go and take myself for a walk.
Right.
What I need to do is go and phone a friend, go and watch something funny on television.
Yeah.
You know, it might be that there aren't magical, mystical things to do necessarily, but it's knowing, knowing what I need to do.
Yeah. No, I mean, I totally agree with you. And I think in my experience of working with many people like you have on a different level, that I've always considered myself to be very resilient. And I know that I am. However, what we are currently dealing with is a loss of more than just human contact. It's a humanity that we have been familiar with. And the feeling that we are so restricted. In actual fact, we are, but we're not. And we're doing it willingly for moral reasons. You know, we don't want to be transferring illnesses to other people. However, I have personally found that listening to the news continually is very destructive for me. And I've had to dig deep into things that have kept me sane. You know, and knowing that I would be okay the next day and there's nothing wrong, but I've had to sort of go for lots of walks. Personally, I love watching Grace and Frankie on Netflix. But there are times that it's actually really difficult. So I'm going to ask you, in your experience, what are your top things that you're doing to keep yourself going batshit crazy?
Well, first of all, I get up and make my bed.
Yeah, me too.
And I do like to go out for a walk every day. I know that. And you just mentioned them watching different things on television. I learned very quickly, sadly, that my sleep was being disturbed because I was watching too much news.
Yeah.
So I'm very keen to, now I might read something that takes me away from this lockdown situation.
Yeah.
I certainly try to go for a walk. I do make contact with family. I joined a quiz last week. I put my makeup on, and sometimes I feel, how shallow is this, putting your makeup on?
No,
but
I think that's really
I feel better, you know, do my hair over, etc. I feel better. I still put jewellery on, and keeping in touch with friends. So one of the things I've also started to rediscover, and so this is a fabulous time to do it, is what is your passion, what you're interested in. I can't do my tango, which I normally do. So I've started to do I've started to do some art, which I haven't really picked up for over 20 years. But I've made little cards. So I've also done some handwritten cards to friends. And that's me being able to do that, and I know has made a difference to somebody else.
Yeah.
You know, a short note has made me feel better.
Yeah.
So it is, have been days where you sort of find that can be more difficult to do. But again, you learn to recognise that something is happening.
Yes.
And rather than spiral down, you have to say, stop, what can I do to make this better?
Yeah. You did make me laugh when you say you put, you know, your makeup and your pearls. I was told many years ago, and I've used it frequently. You know, the saying I usually say to my friends is, teeth, tits and pearls, darling, carry on. Teeth, tits and pearls.
Absolutely.
And to this day, you know, there's a moment you think, oh, I can't be bothered. You know, no, teeth, tits and pearls, off we go, off we go.
No, it's perfect.
Only I could say that and get away with it, probably.
Of course.
So, in terms of your work-life balance, you know, I know that you love to do tango dancing and travel to Spain. In fact, if I'm right, you were learning Spanish.
Oh, yes.
How have you managed with not doing that? Are you doing it at home?
No, I am. Although not probably as regularly as I should. But my family actually bought me, it was my daughter-in-law bought me a lovely book, and I haven't used it. And it's actually a diary which is between the grandmother and the granddaughter. And it's to be written in Spanish.
Oh.
So it's between you and me, grandmother. So it asks me questions. So I've started doing that again, because every day it gives you a purpose to say, to write in Spanish. And so it'll say in Spanish, tell me what your memories of when you were a child, or where you went on holiday. So that's one nice way for me to start practicing it, and no excuses. Yeah. And my Spanish teacher lives around the corner, but we've been Zooming. So, but it took me, actually, there's some of the things that I did regularly, I sort of wanted to reevaluate or have a break from slightly. And I think this thing about resilience and being comfortable is also about not feeling you must do something.
Yes. Yeah.
That word should never be in you. You know, it's better to say, I could do this, and it's a choice I'm making, not I must or I should.
Yeah.
And it's something we all do. We all have that habit of, and then, especially women, I'm convinced, load ourselves with guilt.
Oh.
And how mothers, you know, they're coping at the moment is a big thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think women generally carry the bag on the back of their shoulders, and it's a guilt bag. And, you know, once it gets too full, then you sort of dump it out. You have a good cry or a shout with a friend, and then it's empty, and then you think, oh, I shouldn't be eating this. Oh, I shouldn't wear that. I'm too old for this. I don't do this. And talk about the eating thing. I currently must have frostbite in my ears because my head is constantly in the fridge thinking, what will I eat? What will I eat? Nothing to do with being hungry. It's just I'm thinking, I need food. And then as soon as you've had it, you think, oh my God, that's another 2 pounds. I'll never get food again. More guilt into the bag.
It's a thing that, I mean, I found as a young mother, and then I think I was fortunate because it's quite normal when I had my children to have a bit of a gap.
Yeah.
And I quite enjoyed that. And then I wanted to go back to work. But whether you choose to go back, whatever time you choose to go back, you're trying to be, if you're married or, you know, your partner, a good partner, a good wife. You're trying to be good at work and you're trying to be a good mother.
Yeah.
First of all, you can't be perfect at any of those things. You can only do your very best. And try to, I don't know, be kind to yourself, forgive yourself. if you're not achieving what you want to do in those things.
Yeah.
Not feel guilty. And I think with resilience and well-being, there is a point where you can only determine what it is that's good for you and your immediate family. I'm not meaning that, not what everybody thinks about you,
no,
or expects of you.
No.
And their standards, whatever it is, or thinking might be different. And you've just got to shut it out and go, what feels right with me, with my partner, with my children, and this is where I will place my energy. I'm not going to worry about a load of people there with their opinions.
No, I totally agree. I mean, we're talking about resilience. I mean, in terms of resilience in today's world, I mean, in this current situation, one of my daughters is working from home with her husband, or partner, and the baby. And I've listened to her talking about how they schedule their day. One gets up and does an early shift at work, and then the next one and the next one with the baby and working. And at the end of the day, they still have to catch up. And there are thousands of young women and men juggling and being resilient to cope with what they're currently living with and still continue whilst they have the opportunity to go work. And I mean, that takes courage amongst, you know, all of them and all of us, but the ones that have got the extra to look after, I think, you know, well done to them, because they're coping in unprecedented times. So,
totally.
I mean, and obviously the companies that are allowing them to do and supporting them for working from home, I would think more from your experience, you know, what must they have to plan to do that? Because obviously you being in that HR experience, I mean, what sort of strategies would need to go on to support that?
As you know, my other side of work, you know, is HR, and I think I'm going to be extremely busy. And this week, I've been dealing with people who are, I usually write an update, a COVID-19 update for all my clients. And, you know, I've had to include in things there. Look, remember that some of your staff, employees, may have lost other people.
Yes.
They may have experienced death. Remember that. So we talk about planning for how are you going to be bringing people back to work. You've got at least, if not more, you've at least got two different factions. You've got people who could be working in the company, and that might be in the office, potentially at home. In fact, you've got three. You've got people working in the office or factory or whatever, people working still at home, and then you've got people furloughed.
Yes.
And some of those, it's going to feel a little bit like a holiday, I know that. And how do you bring those people back into the workplace is very difficult. It won't just happen.
No.
And some of my clients are very thoughtful. Others go, I haven't really thought about that. And I've been saying, you've almost got to do a mini induction at this point, even when you get people back. Things will have changed, and the way they behave. And then, on the other hand, yesterday, I was put in touch with somebody, not really to give a little bit of, you know, a free advice, which I'll do occasionally, somebody being asked to go back, and without going into all the circumstances, what came out of the call, which wasn't very long, I suddenly said to this person, this woman, how long is it since you last left the house? She said, I haven't left the house for 8 weeks, not once.
Wow.
And the upshot was I urged her to go to her doctors, because now how that poor woman, though, is going to try to go back to work when her anxiety levels, she's petrified of dying.
Yeah. Oh,
which to a degree we all are. I mean, obviously, but some people like me are going, okay, there's a risk. How do I manage the risk?
Yeah.
I manage the risk, and still, so I manage it by going out to, you know, take and making sure I wash my hands and this. Her risk is being managed. Well, it's not managed, but her risk is saying, I can't leave the house. And there were other things around that because of fears. So I suddenly thought, I wonder how many companies are going to be, because she was being called back to work.
Wow.
How many times is this going to happen? So I often see it from both sides.
Yes.
I tend to work for companies.
Yeah.
But I'll always help individuals. Somebody rang me this week and thanked me because I'd managed to get them some pay owing that they'd never thought they'd get back, and I'd help them with some letters. And I just said, look, send this, and you'll get it back. And they went, I just want to tell you, I'm going to have my pay back. But it is interesting, it seems, and I think the coaching and the HR side come together when you can see both sides. And the one helps me talk to individuals and say, actually, your company's doing the right thing. They are helping you. They will put things in place.
Yes.
Some companies have been very, very good with the well-being and support.
Good.
Not everybody. And then at the same time saying to a company, this fear is very real for some people.
Yes,
you can't just dismiss it. Yeah, you've got to talk to people.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's very forward thinking of you, Dianne, because not everybody is recognising the fact that the fear level has become so enormous for a lot of people that they either are not going out or thinking twice about going out. And despite what the government is saying is, yes, you can go out this, and you can go out this, and you can do that, it's almost creating more fear because there's no definitive information. And I don't blame the government, because there is no precedent for them. They are just going with what they can make up that they feel is best for everybody. But there are individuals who are becoming reclusive and very fearful, and that is, I think, going to be a huge problem when at whatever point in the future we are all allowed to go to the new normal. And it is a new normal. We will never be the same as a world again, I think. We have to adapt and live differently. But there are a lot of people who are really, really going to struggle if they can actually make it through this, to that point. So your awareness of how companies are going to have to perform is fabulous. And I think, I'm sure you are doing everything to get out to them. But I think, if we can do anything to help you spread your word, because that is a key feature for employees and employers moving forward.
Yeah, I was talking to a client this week, and it is unfortunate because he has got some people who were so fast to get out that door to be furloughed. But there is, as he was worried about people making excuses when he calls them back, and they actually are fairly essential workers who've been working their way through. And I said, in some cases, you're going to have to take it on case basis. If somebody says, I can't come back because I told you I did have asthma, but they've been working for you. We've got a situation now where you've put everything in place, so there should be no more risk for that person back in the office than there was if they're going to the shop and they aren't staying in all the time. However, if your other employee says, actually, my cancer treatment's starting again, or I said, you can't. There isn't a blanket on this. The key is you've got to talk to people and find out and make a judgment call. And I know people are very keen sometimes saying, I've got to treat everybody the same because it's fair. That's not fairness or equality. It's bringing people to the right level, and so sometimes for some people you have to give them a help to do something, and other people are able to do it. So, but mental health particularly mental health issues in the workplace and for individuals is huge. And I do fear for those who have been in lockdown and struggling and how they're going to go back.
So can I just backtrack a little bit, because obviously your experience of working with HR, and obviously I'm working heavily with menopausal conditions for men and for women. What was your experience of any providing of services supporting or educational for menopausal members of the staff, menopause and menopause?
Well, it was interesting because I've left, I was only thinking, gosh, it's actually pretty well 2 years. It's June, so it's 2 years, the birth of my new company. And I would say that when I left, it was only really just becoming even on an agenda. It really wasn't. So we might have individual where we would say, we had a lot of employee assisted programs and wellbeing programs, so people could access those. And I think I started to talk to a man that was interested. He was one of our suppliers that helps with learning and development. And he started to say, I think, he'd been to a few companies, this is possibly on the radar. And he was talking to me, and one of the things he said, I wonder why it's not been mentioned before. And I believe it partly to do with, because it's related to age. So it's a discrimination in the workplace. Women turn up to the workplace, and actually this happens to men as well when they're older. And you've got a multi-generational workforce, and quite often they will it's not always true, but sometimes it is true that the older ones settle into their way, and I can't, you know, I was there and I was determined not to happen to me. And it's that association with, oh, that person's getting older, are they coming up to retirement, are they doing this, this and this? It's also quite personal for women. Yeah. So I think a lot of women are reluctant to talk, certainly to men or to their bosses, because there's that connection to their age.
Yeah. And that, I was just wondering if you find that in the corporate world, because certainly that's the problem that I hear all the time is we can't talk about it at work, because if we do, then they will know we're of a certain age, and they'll be thinking, well, if she can't cope because of how she's feeling, we have Tom, Dick and Harry in the background who are 30 and no symptoms, and they can come in, they'll get managed out. And that's horrific, but it is still very much in 2020 a big issue.
It's true. So I think it's changing, because I've kept, obviously, now I'm working with different clients, and there's a greater willingness, people like you in what you're doing and talking about it, and I look on Facebook and different things. It's becoming what we didn't talk about before. And I think that's can only be good, because it's a massive thing. You know, the women in physically, there's probably three big areas, isn't there, when you have your periods and start that. Yeah. And you're, oh my gosh, what I'm, and the excitement. There's, if you're able to, when you might have give birth and have children, and that whole thing around, which is now very protected and acceptable in the workplace, by and large. And then you have, obviously, there's looking after the children, but then you get this other life-changing event in terms of your physical way. And some people, I've got hands up, I was very, very fortunate, but worked constantly with women who would be experiencing that. And, you know, that a woman recognises it, a bit like when you're younger, and well, for me, when I was younger and had my periods, I'd turn up to work and think, why am I at work? Because I'm in such pain, I need to go home. But women know that. Yeah, very real. And now we have this menopause that no one really talks about at all. But the positive is, with people, you know, spokeswomen, if you like, talking about it and being prepared to talk about it. It's on the television more. There's some excellent doctors that tend to be female who've specialised in it, and they will often talk about it. And I think that it will become the norm to be able to talk about it. Yeah, it has to be. It has to be moving forward, because we can't ignore the midlife people like us, because we are still the future of the economy. Yeah. You know, it's not as if we can retire when we get to be 60 anymore. It's, you know, it's going to be 70, 75. And we need to be fit and healthy and well to get there and still have brain function and bodily function to keep up. And it's something to go through. I mean, again, you know, I was fortunate. I do think that there's part of some of the work we have done is around, and I know you are very passionate about this, you have to also stack everything in your favour. Yes. So you should, like, in my view, you know, things like controlling weight is useful. But mainly it's about, you know, your immune system, your healthiness, what you're eating. Yeah. If you know there are triggers. So although I did find that alcohol, which I love, but it will have probably a different effect upon me. Yes. So don't do it. You know, it's look at try things out. So you should do as much as what you can do to help it. Yeah. And the other side is being able to talk about it and finding, you can't talk about it in the workplace, and women they'll find somewhere to go and have a conversation and find out what others are experiencing and what you can do to help yourself. Well, exactly. It's also knowing that you're not alone, because I still get people saying to me, I wish I'd known, I wish somebody had told me what to expect. I mean, we shouldn't be in that situation. So we have to move forward with being honest and saying, I'm 110, I'm having a menopausal symptom, so shoot me, but this is how it is. Yeah, do what you can. And sorry to interrupt you, but I just had a really interesting question come in for you, Dianne. Oh yeah. Should employers be responsible for the health and safety of workers in their home office? They are by law required to be.
Oh.
So there's an interesting thing here. So what we're doing at the moment, there's three categories. One category is I work in the office and occasionally I go and work from home. So as long as you've got that equipment, that is by and large my responsibility. I coming and going. I have an office, but I'll work from home.
Okay.
If somebody is working and designated a home worker, then there has to be a risk assessment. There should be the right equipment. You shouldn't, by and large, rock up at the kitchen table. You need a proper chair. In effect, you need an office at home. It might be slightly not what you were expecting at work, but if you're designating, if I was employing somebody, I need to know that that office I would normally send somebody out, to do a HSE risk assessment.
Sorry, Dan, just to interrupt. Even in this time when many people are working from home,
this is the problem. Yep, this is the problem. Most people are doing this as a temporary stopgap.
Yeah.
And therefore, it is difficult because I believe their companies are still responsible. But I think because we are people who, it works, it's safer for us to be at home, etc. I think there's a little bit of both.
Yeah.
I expect the employer to be able to say, that's the question, can you work from home? What is it you're going to put in place? And also, I do think now there's a responsibility on us to go, well, employers allowing me to do this. I wouldn't normally do this because it keeps me safer.
Yeah.
So what can I do best to try and make myself safe? So it's unlikely, rightly or wrongly, and I'm not sure actually whether I'd have to talk to my health and safety expert that I might talk to occasionally and say, they probably say, yes, you should have a risk assessment, but the practicalities of that. No, so it should be an adult conversation that says, actually, I will be able to manage. Now, so another thing is you shouldn't be looking after children when you're working from home. So even if you're at home, and I've had more than one conversation where some poor person's trying to work and they've got children at home.
Yeah.
And you used the word earlier, they are unprecedented. Normally, so if a request came in to me in the HR team that said, I want to become a home worker or work from home 2 days a week, etc. And I've heard this said, because that will help me look after my children as well, yeah, we would refuse the request because you cannot legally, you're not working, you're now a carer.
Yeah.
But again, I think it's in my own family. I've got one son and his wife sharing. They sort of take it in turns. They've got the one son, yeah, and they've got their own business. They can go into the office or work from home. So their house is tidy. It's big. They can go off and they've got an office at home and a place to go. My other family, I popped in today, and it's socially distancing. Popped in today, I know that my daughter Nadia is having to try and construct an office as had in the bedroom or work. If their children aren't there, she works. But childcare is given to my son.
Yes.
So, and then she has a proper day off, etc. It's not ideal though. And if that was a permanent arrangement, the working arrangements probably wouldn't work. They would have to have something different.
Yeah.
So in answer to the question,
with this conversation, because from what you're saying, I can understand what the company should be doing. I have no knowledge, but I would be quite sure that because of the families having to work from home because of social distancing, but yet having no childcare, there are no risk assessments being done, and people probably need their own equipment to do work for the companies they're working for.
Yeah.
Because nobody has the time to think about this, I would think. And that's just off the top of my head.
I think that's the responsibility then of an employee to go, I cannot work from home. I have the children at home now, they're not at school, I'm a single parent, I live in a flat, all sorts of things, so I can't, I've got only 1 or 2 rooms.
Yeah. And
therefore that is when I think where it would go wrong is the employer then starts to insist.
Yeah.
Or even, we've had this situation quite publicly where, if you're furloughed, you can't continue to work for the organisation, you're not to work, but it's been in the paper about a certain person who's offered in the paper, Sport Direct, and I don't know whether it was true, but nevertheless the accusation was that he was expecting his employees who were furloughed to work for him. And it wouldn't surprise me, but I don't know, and it was in the paper and that's all I'm reporting. But I guess that's probably happened in other places as well.
Yeah, I would think so. I would think so. Difficult. It's difficult. Definitely. So, how are you going to move forward, Dianne? You know, when the sort of the curtain lifts on this performance.
Wow,
What are you going to do?
I've been thinking about this. Telja mentioned I had some coaching this week myself, and HR is something that I love in many ways, and I love my clients, and quite often I do HR, but I'll also do other work with them, you know, in their employees. And I call it my bread and butter as well. It's easy, it just comes in. But I was thinking about my coaching work, and I've realised in reflecting upon what I've been doing that I love it, totally love all my one-to-one, but what I have been really enjoying is the opportunities I've worked with a couple of organisations as an associate. So one in particular, I work with a company called, it's Paul Fury Limited, but Dr. Paul Fury, he's amazing. And he recruited me along with some other associates to grow his business.
Oh, wow.
What that gives me is probably the bit I missed from corporate life, because I'm mixing with other coaches. And so we're together, and also it gives me access to probably bigger organisations, and I'm used to working in bigger corporates. So his ability, we're having, you know, the way he works and his client base means that I can be part of a team.
Oh, brilliant.
And also bouncing off on one another.
Yeah.
So it gives a nice energy. So coaching can be, if you're working on your own, it can be quite a lonesome thing.
Yeah, and you have to be very focused and sort of regiment about when you work and when you take a break and something. But work, you do get inspired by other people. Well, I do.
Absolutely. And you know, one of the things that I passionately believe in is our ability never to stop learning.
Yes.
And so that puts me in a space again where I'm learning from others. I mean, Paul's brilliant, the other coaches are, and sometimes I come away and think, oh, Smith fellow. Sometimes I come away and think, gosh, they're so good. You know? What am I going to do? But it's been great. And then I was contacted last Friday by someone who used to work with me, who's also gone out on her own.
Oh, great.
She's been asked to tender for something around resilience again for a big company, a public company. And she said, do you fancy going in with this with me? You know, so.
Fabulous.
And I went, fabulous. A, I like the project. We might not get it, but A, I like the project. And B, fabulous for me to work with Hannah again.
Yeah, great.
So that's the bit I started to think, yes, I do some coaching. I do quite a bit of coaching as well with some charities. Some I get paid for, some pro bono. And that's a different world those people operate in. And coaching for them is, they'd never be able to get if it wasn't, I'm not the only one, if it wasn't for me giving a bit of time. That is humbling when I see what they're dealing with. And then, but to be able to have an opportunity to go sort of into the corporate. So I left my coaching session going, right, it's important. I've got a couple of other people who I love working with in the past to make sure that they know I'm here and I'm around. Yeah. And you keep on their radar.
Yeah. Fantastic.
And be interested. So it's helped. It's saying, well, it's not that I don't want to do HR. I do love it. I want to continue it, but would be interested in focusing on doing more of this work in collaboration with people.
Yeah.
So I can still have my own business. I can still say no or yes, but it's a collaborative approach, which is good.
Fantastic. Well, that sounds exciting. So I last week I got cut off because I was talking too much. We've got some time left. So I have one question to start with. What are the first 3 things you're going to do when you're told you can do anything you want to get?
I'm going to go to tango. Oh, I can't tell you that, yeah. Sorry, was it meant to be a work-related question or just anything?
No, just
the moment I can go and do tango, I miss the people. I miss it's very physical, and the closeness of what, you know, being with somebody and the music. I just really miss it.
You would too.
I am. The moment I can safely get on a plane, I'm going back to Granada in Spain, which is one of my favourite. Yes, I'll definitely do that. But I suppose to top it all, I want to be able to freely hug my friends and my family, you know, with real, all that, you know, that natural,
Yes.
where you touch people, because I'm quite touchy, you know, and a bit of a hug and sit in a bar. This is water, by the way, but sit in a bar. So it's about those are the things which are actually quite, each of those is a physical thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it is a physical thing. It's definitely a physical thing. I mean, yeah, I'm like you. I want to grab my loved ones and just give them a big fat snog in the face and pull them in tight for a hug. Nothing better than that, and no financial goal will ever beat hugging the ones that you love. So that's definitely up there. To be honest, the next will probably be getting my hair and nails done.
I'm interested in how mine's growing, and I'm very fortunate. I know my hairdresser, so she mixed up my colour for me, left it on the step. I rushed home and then got myself into such a mess. I was phoning her and saying, this is only meant to be on the roots, it's now everywhere. She went, it's all right, it won't fall out.
Well, you're lucky. I did the opposite. I did the box set, which is like, oh my God, what colour is this going to be? So lots of Head and Shoulders later. It's not the green it was originally.
Anyway, but you know, I count myself, and I think that's something about the well-being. I believe greatly in practicing gratitude. Yeah. So when you mentioned about the whole resilience and how your mind is, I can wake up some morning, especially if I've been dreaming a lot, and feel quite low. And I don't know why I do it in the shower. It's nothing. But when I get in there, I might start, and sometimes you have to just force yourself to say it.
Yes.
I am grateful for that. I've got my good health. I've got a garden. I've got my family. I've got this. And it definitely lifts your mood. And the other thing I give people a huge tip on, and there's a whole, you could do hours talking about this, is the power of the breath and breathing.
Enormous. Yes.
Yeah, and that is physiologically proven from all sorts of science about what it does to your brain and I don't know, endorphins and everything. So it's not just about the fact that I do it and slow down and everything. It's actually doing something within you, which is really important. And if you can just stop sometimes and relax and deep breathe, that alone can lift your mood and spirit.
It can. I think, especially as women with families, whether they're grown up or not, I've always said we eat the burnt toast because we've always made sure that they had everything before we had. And I've recently tried to change my phraseology as me first, because I've learned that if I don't look after me mentally and physically, then I'm useless to everybody else. Yes. But that's quite difficult to actually learn, so it's a work in progress.
So Deborah, let me ask you, if I may, what 3 things are you going to do?
Well, I'm absolutely going to grab every family member that I can as soon as I can, love them to death with hugs and kisses. I am going to get a pedicure. My feet are and in terms of traveling, I really would like to go somewhere and walk on a beach. That's my soul throbbing when I'm walking in water with the sun setting over the water. That's just that beautiful, calm mirror inspiration. That's what I'm going to do.
That would be fabulous.
I know.
Really
so,
fabulous.
Dianne, it's been amazing talking to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for asking me.
If people want to get in touch with you, what is the best way for them to do that?
It's email. I mean, or my website's got the email on, so that's.
Do you want to just say that out so that because this is recorded, so it can be kept.
Okay. Yeah, it's www.walcotthughes, and I'll spell that. That's WALCOTHUGHES. Walcotthughes.com.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Deborah. Okay. Speak to you again.
Okay? That went really well.
Bye. And thanks everybody for joining.
Yeah, okay.
Bye-bye.
Thank you everybody for watching. It's been lovely having Dianne join us today. And next week we have another interesting guest. If you have any other questions that come up from anything we've said today, just send it straight through to us and we will definitely get back to you. In the meantime, have a wonderful weekend. See you next week. Bye. 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 Hi everybody. just want to say a huge thank you to everybody who's watched. We had a great afternoon talking with Dianne Hughes, and it was wonderful to hear her input and thoughts on all things to do with HR and coaching. So thank you again to Dianne. So hopefully we'll start you off next week with who's going to join us next Friday live at 5. And in the meantime, have a really good weekend. Bye.